Welcome. Thank you for joining. This is Citizens Climate Lobby's core volunteer training, and tonight's topic is social media workshop. The core volunteer training is a program by the Citizens Climate Lobby that provides CCL supporters, especially new and newer supporters, with access to in-depth training opportunities on topics relating to climate change and effective climate advocacy. I'm your host, Tamara Staten. I am CCL's Education and Resilience Coordinator, and I'm also our regional coordinator for the Greater Pacific Northwest. And tonight's presenter is CCL's very own content marketing manager, Alyssa Tennant. She has a training geared at enhancing you and your group's use of Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, perhaps. So let me introduce Alyssa to you. As CCL's content marketing manager, Alyssa acts as a metaphorical air traffic controller, guiding the development and execution of a strategic content plan that supports CCL websites and social media and volunteer chapters. She takes a detail-oriented approach to meeting marketing goals while also meeting high standards for great content that spreads CCL's message and empowers volunteers. Prior to joining the CCL team, Alyssa worked in marketing agencies in the Cleveland, Ohio area, where she learned the fine arts of copywriting, project management, SEO, content strategy, and of course, social media. So in today's session, first we're going to talk about and create a shared understanding of the value of social media in the first place. Important to talk about the value of it if we're going to be learning how to use it. And then we'll talk through how to use it in positive, effective ways in the course of your climate advocacy, including how to navigate challenging conversations. We'll hear a volunteer's social media success story, conduct a quick workshop, and then we'll have time for questions and answers. And with that, I'm going to pass it to you, Alyssa.
Thank you, Tamara. Hi, everyone. Okay, so my name is Alyssa, and tonight we're going to talk a little bit about social media and how we can use it for climate advocacy. So we're going to start with the value of social media in our climate work. So if you want to check out this graphic, this is something we actually posted on Citizens Climate Lobby's Instagram. This is based on data from a study published in the scientific journal Nature. And this study found that Americans really underestimate other people's support for climate change policies. Over 2/3 of Americans support major climate change policies, but we only assume that around 1/3 of us do, which is a pretty huge gap. So we're underestimating support for climate action by half. So many people are walking around worried about climate change and supporting solutions, but they're thinking that they're alone. And one reason this gap exists is because people don't talk about climate change enough. Catherine Hayhoe says the best thing we can do about climate change is talk about it. So a really critical piece of your work as a climate advocate is to talk about the climate issue, why you care, the solutions that are out there right now, and what is social media if not a place to talk about stuff. So when you have these climate conversations in the public square or the town hall of social media, that helps change people's perception of your level of support for climate action. And it's really important that people hear these things from people they trust, their family, their friends. So it shows these people, your followers, that there is way more support than they may have realized, which then frees them up to join the conversation themselves. We have a snowball effect, and all of that helps build the political will for climate action. So this study and statistic really reinforce how true it is that the most important thing we can do about climate change is talk about it, and therefore how valuable social media can be as a tool to have these talks. So for every frivolous post you may see on social media, you can counteract that with something really important and stuff that we really need to talk about. So how can we make sure that we're getting all that value out of social media and using it in a way that is positive and effective? So we're talking about this two different ways. We're talking about solo users on social media and then also chapter users on social media for Citizens Climate Lobby chapters. So we're going to start off, if you're using social media as an individual for your climate advocacy, like most of us probably are, here are our top 3 recommendations for how to get the most positive, effective use out of social media. So number 1, you can use it to educate your own network with CCL posts or links to ways people can take climate action. This can be really powerful for people in your network because, like I said, people like to hear these things from people they actually trust, and they pay attention to information that they receive from someone they know. So if you make these educational moments as personal as you can, adding in your perspective and trying to post things consistently to keep up the drumbeat, you can really make an impact here. Another second recommendation is to follow people or organizations who inspire you. So this helps you stay motivated to keep up your own advocacy work, but it also might give you some ideas about the types of posts you could make or conversations you could be having on your own profile based on what you're seeing work well for others. Like, for example, we found that timely content always does really well. So the whole debacle about gas stoves that kind of happened a while back, we were able to post an Instagram reel about that, and it did really well because people were talking about gas stoves at the time and no one really knew what to think, and some people thought they were being taken away and all this crazy stuff. So we were able to kind of cut through that noise with a post, and not only educate our network, but kind of tap into the conversation. So if you follow people who inspire you, you can see what they're talking about and kind of get ideas for yourself and join in their conversations. And finally, our third recommendation for using social media positively and effectively is to engage with members of Congress. So I'm going to spend some time on this third way to use social media because this is something we've seen really pay off in terms of building relationships and moving our lawmakers forward on climate. So I love this little gift that I made, so let's take a moment for it. But so engaging with members of Congress really starts with following their accounts so that you're seeing what they're posting about and you can respond when it's appropriate. So when you see them post about something climate related or something that could be climate related, that's an opportunity to engage on social media with a comment and use it in a positive and effective way. So the comment section, this might be shocking, but the comment section of your lawmaker's social media post can get a little bit messy. People tend to go in there with the fury of 1,000 suns rather than a positive and effective approach. People go to express their thoughts, and these thoughts are often negative. But what that means for us is that it's actually fairly easy to cut through the noise by leaving a positive comment. So a simple note expressing gratitude to a member of Congress for co-sponsoring a climate bill, or even something simple like holding a town hall or visiting students at a local school, is going to stand out and also sticks to CCL's key values of gratitude, appreciation, and respect. So the example here on this slide is a really good example of this. This was something she didn't even tag Citizens Climate. She didn't have to, but we ended up finding it on Representative Salud Carbajal's post about introducing the Energy Innovation Act. And this person left a comment in the comment section and said, "Thank you for introducing this bill." And that she's very concerned about climate change. And that's it. It can be as simple as that. Something positive, thank you very much, and moving on. So another way to stand out is to leave a substantive comment or make your own meaningful post. So if you spent the weekend tabling and talking to people in your community about climate change, or you got a letter to the editor published and you wrote about local climate impacts, you can make your own post on social media and tag your member of Congress so that they get a notification and they see what's going on in their district or state. So looking for opportunities to make those types of meaningful posts, you will stand out. And I will say, some people say, will they actually check like their Twitter, their Facebook? If they aren't checking it, their staff is checking it. So somebody is monitoring that page and they will see the posts that you are making. So that's a couple of ways that you can engage with your members of Congress. So why do we do this? In addition to having that public conversation about climate we talked about in the beginning, which is super vital, we also know that members of Congress, like I said, have a staffer in charge of social media, checking comments and reporting back to their boss. So even if they don't respond to you directly, according to the Congressional Management Foundation, 80% of congressional staffers said fewer than 30 comments, like 10 to 30 comments on a similar topic, were enough for the office to pay attention. So even if you have people in your chapter who go onto your member of Congress's post about climate related anything, and you're all able to leave a comment, that's going to be enough for their staffer to pay attention. So your comments and posts not only make an impact on your friends, family, and followers, but they also make a nice impact on our lawmakers. And one thing that we should keep in mind is that we should be judicious. So I say that, cutting through the noise, leaving a positive comment, that doesn't mean leaving a comment on every single post. If you're leaving the same thing over and over, or even if you're the only person commenting on their stuff, you may think that like, oh, they have to pay attention to me now. But that can often be counterproductive because they'll eventually learn to tune you out. Same thing with our climate action program. We're looking to get a number of different voices talking about climate. So an occasional comment is a very good thing to engage with your member of Congress, as well as making your own posts and tagging them. So I just wanted to share an example of how this approach of meaningful engagement I just talked about has strengthened our relationship with members of Congress and led to more social media conversation about climate and different interactions with lawmakers. So this was a slide. It shows a tweet that I posted about a carbon pricing bill from several Democratic senators during the last Congress. We were saying, yay, thank you so much. We're cheering the introduction of the bill. And Senator Brian Schatz, who's from Hawaii, actually retweeted it. So it's just as easy as making a tweet, getting their attention, and you can get a retweet, which is an awesome way to engage. And then we have a similar post from a representative. So in the last example, I had made the post and a member of Congress had retweeted it. In this example, actually, members of Congress posted about meeting with CCL volunteers. So when this kind of thing happens, this is the kind of thing that we want to absolutely kind of descend on. We want to retweet it, like it, thank them in the comments from meeting with CCL, reply to their tweet and thank them. This is the kind of thing that gets really good engagement. And these types of mentions further elevate our climate advocacy work, and they solidify relationships with the congressional offices you work with. And honestly, it's really cool to, be on your own feed and you retweet you meeting with a member of Congress and then all of your friends see it. It's just a really cool thing that gets people's attention. So it all starts with you setting the right tone with the way you yourself use social media. So these are some ways that solo users can engage with their own networks as well as members of Congress. So on kind of the flip side of this, quick note, we've been talking about using social media as individual, but some CCL chapters do have their own social media accounts that represent the whole chapter and post about its activities. So usually one volunteer or a small group are in charge of running a chapter account. So as a CCL chapter, you can think about using social media for climate advocacy in the same way you would kind of as an individual. The major difference is that once you set it up, it's not representing you, it is representing an entire chapter, and it's a channel that needs to be maintained regularly. So using social media for chapters is not for every chapter, and that's totally okay. No worries. If you're a smaller chapter with limited bandwidth, you could stick to using social media as individuals until you have the capacity to maintain a chapter presence. So one thing you don't want to do is set up a channel and then kind of let it fall apart. And it does happen sometimes, and it's totally okay, but we try to avoid it if we can. So essentially, if you're a chapter account, you're going to try to do the same things. You're educating your network, you're following inspiring people or pages, and you might even start to inspire others, especially if you're kind of operating under this umbrella of Citizens Climate Lobby. So as a chapter account, you have even more opportunity to showcase chapter activities, talk about local climate impacts, share news of your member of Congress's climate actions, and so on. So an individual might slowly grow their friends and followers, send out one tweet about tabling, but if you're a chapter account, you can retweet 5 different members' tweets about tabling and have kind of a larger impact. So a chapter account can grow a little bit faster as well, and might even be a source of recruitment for new volunteers in your community who see these activities on your feed, their friends' feed, etc. And we'll talk a little bit later about a volunteer who actually grew an account from scratch and how she made that happen. So stay tuned for that. And then also chapter accounts can still engage with members of Congress. So you might actually have more success getting back like some sort of engagement from a member of Congress if you're interacting through a chapter account, just because it lends an additional air of credibility. It's often a public profile versus a more private individual account. And the entire account is usually going to be about climate advocacy work rather than personal information. So you might even have a higher chance of getting that kind of coveted engagement. This next slide is a total aside. I wanted to put in this presentation because I think it's important, but it didn't fit nicely anywhere. So I have added it here. Just as an aside, I wanted to share that we do have free Canva templates that can be used by both chapter accounts and individuals. We want to make it as easy as possible for you to create your own content if you want to spread the word about climate advocacy on social media. So for example, like Instagram is a platform where you can spend a lot of time because it's a visual platform. So you can spend a lot of time creating images and posts. So many volunteers already use Canva to design graphics, and we actually have a training on Community for anybody who's new to it and wants to use these templates to create their own graphics for individual or chapter social media work. So that's just a fun aside. Okay. So to get your juices kind of flowing as we think about this. Oh, Laura, I'm seeing in the chat right now, Tamara, I can read it. So she's a social media work to promote the CF&D movement. Yes, that is the example that we're going to talk about later on in this presentation. So Laura, maybe I'll just hand it over to you for that part. We'll see. So
We also have one more that Lena shared that she tries every now and again to give herself a challenge. So posted once a day for Ecotober about things that she learned or actions that she tried to take, and generated 30 posts linked by that hashtag.
fantastic. All right, we're getting the juices flowing. Thank you guys for responding. So as we keep kind of moving forward, I wanted to share some tips we've learned at CCL from running our own social media accounts. I hope nobody came to the fall conference and went to this social media breakout, but as Brett Cease famously says, it's great to hear things twice. So I'm going to start with something important that we work to develop on social media, which is our brand tone, which is a little bit of marketing jargon. So if you think of our brand as a person, basically, how would they sound? Consider different people in your life, how they talk. There are certain people who just talk in ways that nobody else would. You can't imagine your grandfather talking the same way as your sister. Just people have different voices, and in the same way, brands have different voices. So we came up with a few important attributes that guide the way we post and talk on social media, which has been extremely helpful to remain consistent and on message when spreading the word and advocating for the climate. So there are 4 parts to CCL's brand tone, and we use this to govern our social media posts. So number 1 is that we are a little bit nerdy. We like graphs and charts, but there's a huge caveat on this. We make the numbers behind climate change understandable and accessible to all. One kind of fatal mistake I have seen in individual climate work, and I'm not going to say fatal mistake because it can totally work, if people will post study after study with like very little context, and it's just not particularly engaging for a lot of people, the average Joe on social media. So we try to understand that some people are into numbers and data, and those people are welcome to head to the nerd corner and see what Dana Nuccitelli has cooked up this week. But we prefer to kind of break things down in a way that everybody can understand. And after all, sometimes the most basic facts can have the biggest impact. If you remember our first slide where we had that chart about the number of people who think people care about climate versus the number of people who do care about climate, that was a really simple way to break down that data in a way that's understandable and easily digestible. So that's when we say we're a little nerdy. We like to share numbers and data, but we like to keep it cool. The second thing about our brand tone is we are wholesome. We project warmth, hope, and welcoming to existing and prospective CCL supporters. The climate space can be a very rough place. So we rise above the doomerism, and we prefer to put a little hope into the world. Nothing wrong with that. Third, we are a tad bit self-deprecating. We're serious about climate action, but we don't take ourselves too seriously. We know this stuff is hard. We know to some people it can seem really crazy to contact Congress 5,000 times in support of a single bill about transmission across state lines. If we can't laugh about ourselves, we will not be able to keep our spirits up. So we toss in a little self-deprecating humor to keep things real and keep them funny. And then finally, we strive to be human in our brand tone. Our posts and replies sound like they come from a real person, and technically they do, because that real person is me and Flannery Winchester and Leslie Beatty. So we are real people, and we don't want to sound like a faceless corporation, a robot. We are humans talking to other humans. So by using a friendly, approachable tone, we can better connect with our followers. We're not a big, inaccessible brand. We're a grassroots network of volunteers, and we try to act like it. We're all friends here. So our brand tone, those 4 attributes, are often tested when we encounter a hater, a naysayer, if you will, on social media. We know them, we've seen them, they are out there. So here's how we navigate through some of those rough conversations that happen through a screen. What do we do when the haters come? Not this. So first, remember, social media is not real life. I feel like a lot of people are really, really dead set on the idea that social media is real life. But this is like my #1 life hack for operating on social media every single day. This weird liminal space is not reality, and people behave different online than they do in real life. It is a channel for communication. It is helpful. It is a way to educate and connect with people, but it is never worth getting bogged down or letting it impact you in real life. Sometimes just that simple reminder is very important, for me included. So instead of flipping tables, we stick to those 4 attributes of our brand tone. Just as we do in CCL lobby meetings, it is important to bring respect, appreciation, and gratitude into your social media interactions on behalf of CCL, especially in the climate space, even if it's not on behalf of CCL, even if you're just talking as a climate advocate. So we stay true to our values, especially nonpartisanship and relationship building. So you can kind of ask yourself, will responding to this conversation further my intentions of building relationships? I mean, you may encounter somebody who doesn't support carbon pricing, not really into the idea of bipartisanship, or just disagrees with you in some other way. So if you're unable to engage with that person in a respectful way, you feel yourself getting frustrated, wanting to win or have the last word or something, just kind of like your brain is telling you you need to respond, the best thing to do is log off. Logging off is free. I love to say that. And if you're having a debate with somebody or you're having a conversation about climate online, keep in mind there are observers to your back and forth on social media. Sometimes the algorithms put things places. You never know who will see your posts. So remember, you might not convince the person who's disagreeing with you, but there might be somebody kind of lurking who will appreciate your civil conversation style and maybe more interested in the climate space because of the way that you presented yourself. So this is a really good example that I love of a volunteer who stuck to these values perfectly in response to somebody who did not agree with him. It was a permitting reform discussion, which can be a touchy subject in the climate space. And somebody was saying that they didn't agree with permitting reform or the way CCL was going about it. And this person came on and said, respect, he literally started the comment with respectfully, and then presented his point of view and even linked to a CCL training. Stuck to the brand tone, and this potentially challenging conversation went really well because of the way that he responded. And now we're going to talk about the carbon fee and dividend movement. So, Laura, just so you know, Emily O'Keefe, the founder of the CF&D movement, gave a presentation at our fall conference on her experiences with the CF&D movement and growing the account. And I kind of took that story and added it to this presentation. And she tells the story herself in our fall conference version of this presentation. And I highly, highly recommend checking it out because I will not do this to the justice that she does. She is so passionate and fantastic. You can skip around because I kind of repeated some stuff we said in the fall. But Emily tells the story in her own words, and it's like 1,000 times more impactful. So I think we're going to put the link in the chat. cclusa.org/fall conference. So I just want to talk about Emily O'Keefe. Emily is a student at William and Mary in Virginia, and she launched the @Carbon Fee and Dividend account on Instagram, and it has taken on a life of its own. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about how she started the CF&D movement, Carbon Fee and Dividend movement, and how she used social media to spread the word first on campus and then across the country, because it is such a good story. And I did not put this link in my notes, but the Instagram is instagram.com/carbon fee and dividend. If Tamara, you're able to put that in the chat, or Megan, I'd appreciate it. So I'm Emily. So about 2 years ago, she had a bit of an existential crisis about climate change and was kind of reading literature, seeing what was out there, and through hiked the Appalachian Trail from Georgia to Maine, as we all do when we're having an existential crisis. I have tried to corner her and get this story many times, and I haven't, so I have no further details, but one day I will have those details. And she thought about how she wanted to do something big with collective action, but was really trying to figure out what. And she had a friend who showed her En-ROADS, the En-ROADS simulator, if you guys have seen that. And it was kind of an aha moment for her that shows that a carbon fee and dividend is the most impactful climate policy. And out of seeing this simulation with En-ROADS, it was a moment for her, and the movement was born. So the idea behind the CF&D movement originally is to make a sign, show it where you can, on campus, your computers, dorm doors, everywhere. It was a super passive and easy way for people on campus to get involved and kind of have this climate policy just get around to different people and a wider audience. So the vision here is that one student with a sign will lead to more students with signs, and then the entire campus will start joining in on this movement. And then when millions of students across America are advocating for a carbon fee and dividend visibly and contacting their representative, Congress will finally pass it. Point A to point B. Or we're making it a spotlight policy where people vote for Congress members who will pass it. So either way, she has a goal. It's a fantastic goal. It is a lofty goal, but we're going to talk about how social media helped her get there. So day one of the movement, I love this photo. It was just her eating lunch at a dining hall in William and Mary on campus. And then about a week into the movement, she kind of spread it to her friends and got a couple other people to hold the carbon fee and dividend sign. And then it's just one semester after incredible outreach, you're seeing signs everywhere across campus, and we have all these photos to prove it. And now more schools across the nation are also joining in, and the CF&D movement is becoming bigger and bigger every day. She started out with outreach. She put up tons of flyers, handed out stickers, gave dozens of presentation, chalked little drawings on campus, which I used to love when I was in college, seeing that kind of thing. But one of the most important parts of this movement was her social media presence on Instagram. So as a national student-led movement, they need strong social media presence. There's a Gen Z audience primarily, because it started on a college campus. And so from the start, they prioritize social media, know your audience, they're on social media. That's where the CF&D movement is going to be. So the CF&D movement is trying to get as many young people as possible to know about this policy. And social media is a tool that can do that really fast. It also provides social proof. So if you see a lot of people on a campus, your own age, holding up these signs, it's something that's going to provide proof. Social proof is kind of a marketing term that shows that other people are doing it and you should do it too, which sounds silly, but is very impactful. So Emily also had previous social media experience. She actually had a confession account. People would message her their anonymous confessions, which I think is just the funniest way to kind of translate into climate advocacy. But she's like, yeah, I have prior social media experience and I can totally grow this movement on Instagram. So she whipped out her iPhone and she started this movement, and now she has over 3,400 followers on Instagram and is continuing to grow. When I gave this presentation with her in November, she had 3,100 followers. So it is literally continuing to grow, and I had to update the slides to reflect that. So Emily very helpfully put this slide in her presentation, and I wanted to touch on it, just some stuff that she has learned as somebody who took her iPhone and started this whole movement from her dorm on William and Mary's campus. Number one is to make this as human as possible. Her highest engaged posts that the CF&D movement posts are those with people in action, very personal captions, personalized stuff, people with lots of genuine, unfiltered human emotion. People love usually when they can get their picture taken, especially at like a tabling event or a public thing, especially if they're holding the CF&D sign. So she was very easily able to take that, get people excited about getting their picture and video taken and post it. And it's super low effort compared to other kinds of content, like going into Canva, doing all this stuff. So it's pretty easy to get a picture of somebody and post it on social media. Just you have to be confident enough to ask, especially in like a climate space, and ask for permission. She also says to observe similar accounts, like I said, following people who inspire you. Sometimes just browsing through that content can be helpful if you're not sure what you want to talk about or you're feeling kind of uninspired that day. So following engaged accounts within the climate space is very helpful for her, especially following climate groups in the same city. So she found local climate groups and followed them, her members of Congress, different people who were posting about carbon fee and dividend, different climate things. She found it very helpful. And then her kind of last two pieces of advice are to just go for it. The CF&D account took 5 minutes to create, and now it has ballooned into it's kind of taken on a life of its own. She said we made a lot of mistakes, still making a lot of mistakes, but it let her get where she is now. And she trusted the process that she will get better. And above all, my favorite part, she said, you are a positive force. Goodness will result. CCL values and goals are based on love and truth to the point where only good can result. We never know exactly what that good will be, but maybe one new person will see your post by chance and it could change their life. So I want to close out this kind of section on CF&D movement, which I hope inspired you, with this fantastic video that Emily posted with her friend Pratch, who has her own Instagram account called @PratchOnEarth. And I think Megan, if you're able to play that, it should just play right in the slide.
Most effective climate policy is a carbon fee and dividend.
So tell your representative to support the Energy Innovation Act, and let's save the world together.
Thank you, Emily O'Keefe and the Carbon Fee and Dividend movement for that video, and that story is so inspiring, and I really love sharing it, so I totally appreciate it. I think it really shows the impact that one person can have on social media, and how she took a page from 0 followers to over 3,000 by remaining true to herself, her mission, and her brand voice, and everything in between. All right, so we are heading in to a little workshop to kind of close things out as we wrap up here. So I'm going to invite you all to log into social media on your phones, tablets, computers, and just take some tiny actions tonight on social media. So what we're going to ask you to do is to click on some posts. If they're videos, watch them. That's it. Engage with them. If you have an account, you can like, you can leave a comment, you can share. We have options for posts on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I want to do a very short note about Twitter because we've had some unrest about like why we're still on Twitter with the Elon Musk chaos that is happening over there. And I totally agree with you. I think it is a very, very slow movement over to Threads, but we have started posting on Twitter and Threads. We're kind of building up an audience on Threads, but right now all members of Congress and our biggest portion of our audience is on Twitter. So we're kind of on both right now. But just this last weekend, Vice President Harris and President Biden actually joined Threads for the first time. So I am seeing a lot of activity over there, but for the moment we are on both. So I have posts for you from Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And we can move on to the next slide. So this is what the page that I'm going to have Tamara or Megan put in the chat looks like. So I'll share the URL with you in just a minute after I explain how this all works. So every other Friday, our social media team updates this page. So it has a handful of posts, sometimes as little as 4, sometimes right now I think it has 10 that we'd like you to share, 1 or more from each platform I mentioned. You can engage with 1 or all of them. It's totally up to you. And the reason that we ask this is because a little bit of the almighty algorithm. So these platforms prioritize content that has more likes, more shares, more views, more engagement. So just by watching what Citizens Climate Lobby posts, like a 30-second video, all the way to the end, because it tracks how long people are watching videos, gets that content out to a wider audience. We recently actually did a joint post with the Carbon Fee and Dividend movement. That was just a fun little meme, and people watched the entire thing, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and it ended up getting like 600,000 views. And I think CCL Higher Education just had a reel that also got 600,000 views. So you really never know what is going to get big and what is going to kind of pop off, as the kids say. But this helps us get there with our content. So tonight I have 10 posts that you can choose to engage with. Feel free to engage with as many as you want, have time for. We're going to set like a little 5 or 10 minute timer, probably 5 minutes, to give you a minute to do that. So just in case, you know, it's a platform. I cannot remember what the platform is called. Flockler, it's called, is how these posts are curated. So first you're going to decide which ones you want to engage with, and you can see which platform they're on in the upper right corner of the thumbnails on the page. So I highlighted them in little red circles. So then by tapping or using your mouse, whatever, click which post you want to engage with, and it will open in a new window in your browser or phone. And if you're not logged into that platform already, it will ask you to log in, and then you can leave a comment, like, share to your account, your Instagram story, your Facebook feed with your own commentary. So if you open up one of the videos, by the way, you might need to click the speaker icon on the right side to get the audio to turn on. All right, so I'm going to kind of wrap up here with a couple of things. So we at CCL National try to be a really helpful resource for you in your climate advocacy on social media as an individual or someone running your chapter's social media page. So reposting, sharing, liking, commenting, whatever, the umbrella of engagement on our content using a chapter's page or your personal page is really impactful for getting the word out there. A very technical, fun marketing thing is that a lot of the algorithms, Instagram included, prioritizes interactions between accounts. So if I don't even want to get like too far into this, but basically if we interact with each other's content, it will be seen on a wider audience, the almighty algorithm. Always very fun. So I appreciate you taking the time to do that. And be sure to tag Citizens Climate in your posts, because we are always going through and doing a little community management and reposting stuff to our story. So it's a back and forth. And like I said, people think they need to do like the absolute most to please the algorithm, making constant updates, always come up with posts, but that's not necessary. Even a post per week, a comment or 2 on a post from your local lawmakers, members of Congress, where you, identify yourself and your city, so you know your constituent, can go a really long way for climate activism. So be authentic, post about what matters to you, and your audience is going to listen. So I wanted to just wrap up with a few suggestions about how to put these tips into action. So first, please follow CCL if you don't already on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Threads. Tamara has those links. Those are our most active platforms. So you'll be able to see our posts, which you can share with your own network. You can also follow the Carbon Fee and Dividend movement on Instagram at Carbon Fee and Dividend. And for chapters looking to get more involved on social media, you can assign someone or a committee to the task, make it part of your chapter actions or your meetings. And lastly, for ongoing support, we actually have a social media action team, which you can find on Community. There's kind of two links. There's a community link, and then there's also a Facebook group link that we can put in the chat. And you're always welcome to post questions in there about anything social media related, and I or the other volunteers active on social media will jump in to answer and brainstorm with you. We have a lot of different questions in there. No question is too small. If it seems like, a dumb question, there's no such thing. So please go ahead and join the social media action team if that is a topic that interests you.
And with that, I just want to say thank you so much, Alyssa, for all the time that you took to prepare this. Thank you to each of you for coming this evening. You're doing climate work East Coast about 9 o'clock, so that's pretty impressive. And even the rest of you, if you are not on the East Coast, doing climate work in the evening, it's not always easy. So yay you. Feel free to check out our forum, cclusa.org/forums. As a reminder, our social media action team is at cclusa.org/CCL social, or you can email Alyssa directly, alyssa.tennant, TENNANT, @citizensclimate.org, or you can check out our social media weekly actions at cclusa.org/social actions. And with that, I wish you a wonderful rest of your evening.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Citizens Climate Lobby's training program. You can tune into more episodes anywhere podcasts are available. Inspired by what you heard today? Join Citizens Climate Lobby to advocate for bipartisan climate solutions. Go to community.citizensclimate.org to find more trainings, resources, your local chapter, national action teams, discussion forums, and more. Be sure to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and Instagram @CitizensClimate. We also invite all of our listeners to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more inspiration.
Like what you hear? Recommend us to your friends and make sure to give us a 5-star rating. It helps us show up on other listeners' feeds. Feel free to pass on any suggestions for future episodes in the comments as well.
And together, we are creating the political will for a livable world.